Welcome to the Garfield Heights City School Board District Regular Board Meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. I call the meeting to order. Could I get roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas? Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Can I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda as presented?
So moved.
May I get a second?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Daniels, and that was seconded by Ms. Morrison. Could I get roll call, please?
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. At this time, can we take a moment of silent reflection, and then we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the December 11th special board meeting and the December 18th regular board meeting as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Cox. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Next on our agenda is the board president's report. On behalf of the entire Garfield Heights City School Board of Education, I would like to greet the Bulldog School family for the first time in 2024 as board president and wish you all a very safe and prosperous new year. The excitement and anticipation we, as a Board of Education, feel for the forthcoming year matches the compassion I know our staff has for education, our students demonstrate for learning, and our families share for supporting our efforts. Let's have a great 2024. I would like to commend Heather Morrison for becoming Vice President of the Board of Education for this term, and we look forward to her leadership. I also would like to formally welcome Tandika Cox to the Board of Education and congratulate her on her election last November. These individuals, along with veteran board members Nichelle Daniels and Ashley Thomas, and your Garfield Heights Board of Education. It's only befitting that this month is Board Recognition Month in the state of Ohio. So please join me in extending our collective gratitude to the individuals who serve as liaisons with the community and Dr. Reynolds and his team to lead our school district. Service on the Board of Education can embody many responsibilities, including decision-making, responsibilities to inquiries, and helping make policy. And this term's Board of Education is quite special in Garfield Heights City Schools, as to the best of our team's knowledge, represents the very first time in the school district's history with an all-female Board of Education. With that, I ask you to join me in a round of applause for my colleagues on the Board of Education. Dr. Reynolds, we look forward to working with you in the upcoming year and will work tirelessly to support your vision and your leadership for this school district. Already we see great educational strides being made in the school year with spelling bee competitions, co-curricular successes among our student participants, and an emphasis on staying in the game and being in school. We intend to build on such successes. Finally, yesterday was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I would like to commemorate the enduring impact of the iconic Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose tragic death is memorialized every January for his inspiration and being a bold visionary in the struggle for equality for all. Without question, Dr. King was able to connect the love he had for mankind that was rooted in his faith to the most important justice issues of the day. He said that there is no justice without equality, and that nonviolence is the absolute commitment to the way of love, and it's the active outpouring of one's whole being to one another. The Garfield Heights City Schools, and particularly this Board of Education, has been actively involved in the love that we have for our students, staff, and greater school family, and actively dedicated to the causes of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We thank Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for his guidance, his leadership, and his nonviolent but dedicated struggle for equality for all. This concludes my report. Next on our board agenda are committee reports. Are there any committee reports?
Madam President, I have a wellness liaison report.
Ms. Morrison?
Recent purchases were new softball and baseball equipment, which included bases, balls, tees, and stuff like that. The study tables have been going well for those students who had below a 2.0 GPA. We will be able to look at the data once all the final grades have been posted. We hired a new head football coach, Coach Robert Andrews, who brings a wealth of experience, including coaching stops at Glenville, Rhodes, Euclid, and Warren Harding. In boys basketball, we currently hold the #1 ranking in Northeast Ohio and #3 ranking in the state. We have a 12-0 with 3 games this week. Girls basketball has achieved a 9-4 season record, which is already the most wins the girls program has had in the last 5 years. And wrestling went 4-1 in their most recent tournament, with several wrestlers placing in the top 3 of the event. And that concludes my wellness liaison report.
Well, thank you, Ms. Morrison. Our scholar athletes are doing tremendous things. It's great to hear. Are there any other reports?
Madam President, I have a finance committee.
Yes, Ms.
Report.
Morrison, you have the floor.
So I wanted to give a little bit of some facility updates on our current projects. So the revamping of the middle school gym and music room and the new windows in the middle school have been completed. Our next project is working with William Foster to put in a brand new playground. And we're looking at that coming in under budget. We're also going to supplement the grant we have for the pre-K outside classroom at William Foster with some of those ESSER funds. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Are there any more committee reports? I have a legislative liaison report. Last month I reported about House Bill 68 and that it was going to the governor's desk, and the governor vetoed it, but now the House is going to more than likely override the veto. And this is the bill that would prohibit gender affirming for minors, and also it would also enact that all women's sports it also would enact that there would have to designate a separate single-sex team for sports at private colleges and higher education institutions. So just something to watch out for. The Senate is scheduled to consider the veto on January 24th. So we want to keep this in our foresight so we can see what's going to happen with that, because it could potentially affect our district. Any other reports? All right, we will move on. Next on our agenda, we have a presentation from our technology department. I will turn it over to Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we'll be hearing from Mr. Sean Whalen as he has been working diligently with his team to make sure that we remain connected and also that we remain safe. And he'll be talking a little bit about some of the efforts he's been making and some of the plans we're thinking about moving forward, moving the district forward.
Thank you for your time today. I wanted to give you a quick update on the technology department. And first of all, just to introduce my department, I'm Sean Whalen, I'm your Director of Technology. I'm joined tonight actually by Jim Kasuda. Jim Kasuda, who's our network manager, and Tim Sobachinsky, who's our lead network technician. We're also supported as a team by Jeff Gibson and Larry Cameron, who are both our network technicians. This year's been an interesting year. We had, as you know, reconfiguration of our buildings, our 3 elementary buildings. Along with that, while you're doing a lot of movement of staff and students between those buildings, there's also behind the scenes a number of structures that need to be rebuilt, our software structures. They're in many ways their own buildings. We had to rebuild and troubleshoot major changes to Progress Book, our curriculum platforms, staff accounts and access rights, because now we have staff members who were working at one building previously, now they're working in another one, they need to be reconfigured for that. A lot of shifting of equipment between buildings, also shifting of where you placed equipment within classrooms, because a classroom before that may have been a kindergarten classroom is now being used for older students, and therefore placement might be very different. There's also new platform support. We actually had a number of major new platforms that went into effect this year that needed behind-the-scenes support for rostering and setup. Before then, our departments that we partner with then took over those platforms. So it's been a very, very busy year. Some of these pieces that I'm mentioning are pieces that we're still working through right now, because some of those platforms don't get interacted with right at the beginning of the year. So you don't realize that they're having issues until they've gotten to the point where teachers are currently using them based on the timing of the year. Equipment we support as a district right now, we have approximately 500 staff computers and student lab computers. And you're going to see some approximately numbers in there. And the reason for that being is even right now, we are currently in the process of transitioning out old equipment and new equipment. So in that process, our numbers are representative of the fact that we have some new equipment and old equipment that we're transitioning out. We have approximately 4,500 Chromebooks in service. And again, we're transitioning out Chromebooks right now as well, which is where that number comes from. Now you'll say from that, well, we have a one-to-one by student program. Well, some of those are with students, some of those are with staff. But when you run a one-to-one program, a lot of times what people don't realize is it's not necessarily just one-to-one to each student. There are additional Chromebooks in classroom carts. This is particularly at the secondary level and at the elementary level, where you need additional, if you have a cart, you might have 20 students in this period, 25 students in this period. You need to outfit all of your carts so that way they can handle the differing capacities of your classes as they travel through. We also have specialized classrooms that our students interact with that also need those devices in place. So that's why your numbers are far more than one to each child in there. You also need building loaners to be available for repair when repairs are being done by our staff. One of the things we do here is we do all of our repairs in-house for equipment that's outside of warranty. We have very skilled technicians here that take care of that, which is really nice. We also have 645 iPads we support that are in a house with students and staff. Those mainly are with our younger children, but also in other classrooms in special ed cases. We also deal with a wide variety of additional equipment. Specialized instructional devices are spread throughout our district, and it's a very broad category, things like document cameras to equipments that help students through various different needs throughout the day. We support district partnerships. A lot of times staff come to us from a variety of sources that come and work with our district, and sometimes they bring their own equipment. We have to have that equipment interacting with our networks because we keep a tight network structure to protect ourselves for security reasons, making sure they can come here and do the things that they need to do, sometimes being able to have a two-way interaction with things inside and outside of our district. We also support visitors for events, meetings, and professional development with their equipment when they come in. Behind the scenes, what makes all that work is network hardware and software. We have fiber connections that run between our buildings that maintain very fast connectivity. We have district servers that run throughout the day. We have 24 of them supporting all of our district operational needs. That's how staff are able to log in. But they also handle a wide variety of the network functions that control our traffic. Those are important to note because they all have their own operating systems. They all have a wide variety of software systems on them that have to be kept up to date and maintained on a regular basis for security and function purposes because they keep the lights on, they keep us running. We support also all the copiers and printers in the districts. Yes, we have partnerships in that, but the network connectivity in that is all run by us. We have over 105 copiers, printers, and related devices. There's also software behind the scenes called PaperCut that handles managing printing and copying solutions for that as well. We have camera systems throughout our district. We have 11 servers that control those camera systems in each of our buildings, with over 406 cameras currently operating. We also support the door access system, which is the AMAG car reader. We also can support our security panels that are here and our ID printer, and that's in partnership with HR, who we work very closely with the onboarding and offboarding of staff, which has been a great partnership, and the business and finance department as well. Solutions we support beyond that, though, there's day-to-day software that makes this work. We support a wide variety of age ranges of students. There's over 85 active software and web platforms that we currently support on a daily basis. We provide rostering services through programs like ClassLink and Progress Book and Connect, and the reason for the variety of that is each of those have very special needs. There's more that's supported than that 85. That's an estimated number. We've actually had to do an audit recently, and I was shocked at the number of platforms that we support on a daily basis, from large platforms that impact an entire classroom to smaller ones that support smaller groups. And we're currently implementing new platforms even as we speak. Technology tickets are a subset of what we do, because a lot of what I just told you right now aren't really technology ticket related projects that we do. This year, from July 1st to now, we've closed 2,992 tickets. That's work that's all complete and done. We still have open tickets at this point in time, but it's been a very, very busy year and a productive year. And you can see that covers just a wide variety of categories. One of the things when you take a look, there's a lot to learn about where our greatest needs are. And some of that makes sense in our secondary buildings because of the fact that they change classes and there's a wide variety of needs at those buildings. But our largest amount of tickets come from our secondary buildings, middle school and high school. And then our elementary buildings tend to pretty much sit in the same spot, which is pretty normal with lesser needs in some of our other buildings. But we support a wide variety of locations. This year, one of the big projects that we have been working on is an upgrade to our network switches and our wireless. I'm going to start with the wireless first. We have 385 wireless access points. One of them is actually right up here right now. A lot of times they look like something you just stick up on the ceiling, but behind the scenes on there is a wire that goes all the way back to our network closets. We have 385 of them throughout our district that provide wireless access. And when you do an upgrade project like that, it's not a matter of just having them installed and wired back to the closet. There's a lot of configuration that has to go on behind the scenes, and in many cases troubleshooting a wide variety of different spaces We have buildings that have had additions. We have buildings that are of a variety of different ages. And because of that, different construction provides different challenges to signals. So even to this day, we're still going through and fine tuning some of those access points based on reports that we're getting from staff on their needs to make sure they have a high function. The reason why you need to update those is network security, but also the newest wireless protocols, so that when new equipment that comes in operates at an optimal piece. We also still have to deal with, though, when you put in brand new equipment, some of our older legacy equipment that still needs to be in function because of the fact that we're an educational institution and sometimes those devices have not operated to modern standards. So those have been some particular challenge that our technology team's been working with. Back to the network switches. So those, you trace those back to network closets. There, in most of our buildings, there's multiple closets. In the case of this year, we replaced all of the switches in 4 network closets at the high school and all of the switches in the 3 network closets at the middle school. Why that's important, take a look at the pictures that we have here. You'll see the before picture on the left. This is over the fact that during the course of the year, you troubleshoot problems that are going on in classrooms. You have to trace them back to your network closet. Technicians will work in and they'll run back to classrooms, and during that process, it turns into a spaghetti mess as you go through because they're rushing back to the next thing that they have to do to help staff. When you do a network upgrade project, there's a chance to clean that up. Why this is important, when you go into troubleshoot, the cleaner that is, the faster and more responsive you are to staff needs. It's just a much cleaner look. Give you an idea of what our network closets look like, though. There are a wide variety of different sizes between our buildings. This is an example of, it's not just one rack in these closets, there are multiple. And our staff are troubleshooting these on a daily basis when they're working with our staff members. So it's something that goes on behind the scenes that you don't realize that our staff are doing. And these cleanup projects are really critical to maintain the function. It's not just cleaning up the wiring, though. Behind the scenes there's pieces of equipment called network switches. They're what basically provide the connectivity and direct traffic flow from our district. It's a to and from the locations type equipment. They're really critical. You have to replace them because of the fact that, again, after a certain point in time, even if they're still working, they're no longer taking firmware updates and they become a security risk. You're going to hear me talk a little bit more about cybersecurity later, but this is one of the ways that we stay up to date with our cybersecurity in the district, making sure that we're protecting our assets. Camera system I mentioned before. This is a project that we're currently working on right now. 3 of our camera servers are end of life. What that means is the hardware, even though it still quote unquote works, it's starting to get old. It's no longer taking software updates. It can't support newest versions of software. That becomes a risk. We applied for, because we try to maximize any opportunity to us, we applied for the K-12 School Safety and Security Grant to replace them. It's a grant that we're hoping to get $26,000 from for the district. We have a portion of that we pay ourselves, but the $26,000 will be what we get from the grant to help towards that project. Because they need to have an upgrade, it's not just for software updates. There's also hard drives that are in there where they hold house like a DVR like you have at home. It improves reliability of recording, making sure that if we are looking for a certain incident or certain happening in the building, we are able to pull that up with reliability. Also allowing for future camera upgrades. Phase 2 of this project, after we get the server funding, get those servers in place, is to apply for and use grant funding to replace analog cameras, which are some of our older cameras, to increase coverage and performance. This is a big project. Jim, cover yours. This is a big project that we've been working on, our phone system upgrades. We've been working with AT&T and DataServe to migrate our phone lines over to a more stable platform. Over time, old phone lines that have been out there are no longer supported by that company. There's still work right now. Our concern is with that older technology, because they no longer support it, we're eventually going to get to a point where we're not able to receive reliable phone communication to and from our families at times when we need it the most. We are migrating over to the current system right now. We're partway through this project. Jim has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned him. Going through all of our internal phone numbers, we have a lot. And there are a lot of different types of services that they provide. So it was important for him to go through and organize those to make sure that things like alarms, elevators, and other unique equipment will still have the correct safety functions as we do this migration. This has to be something where behind the scenes, you don't know that this happened. On our end, we have stability. The upgrades have been in stages, like I said, to minimize the disruption of service, but we've also been doing them when student and staffs are doing minimal use. We're taking advantage of things like PD days, things like that, to make sure that you don't know that these upgrades are going on behind the scenes. We haven't had any outages due to it during times when students are here. The other piece that we've been doing as part of this project, additional phones, which actually just arrived today, which is why they say on order, and they're actually here now. We had new spaces that went online as part of our reconfiguration at some of our buildings. Those spaces did not have phone service before. Sometimes rooms were chopped up into smaller rooms that needed phones. So we needed to access new phones to make sure that those spaces have the same connectivity of any of our other classrooms. So we're putting those in. We have some extra phones for the purpose of phone fails. We have one to immediately get service restored in that space as well. UPS systems, if you know what these are uninterrupted power supplies. Part of our job is to make sure that our services stay up and running through a wide variety of weather conditions and happenings. During days like today where there's heavy winds and things like that, you'll have certain buildings and certain locations where lights will flicker and things like that. For a network behind the scenes, you don't want that happening with your network equipment. What happens is part of it will go offline, it's unhealthy for the equipment, causes it to fail, and ultimately will cause problems for us. We have UPS systems. These are not generators. What they are is they're battery backups. They will keep the equipment online for a certain amount of time. And when they eventually run out of their battery, the equipment powers down in a way that's not as jarring as your high-powered outages. And that's the purpose, is really to protect the equipment. We've needed to replace some of these, and we do a really good job of keeping up to date with these. We have a large one at the high school that's being replaced, and batteries for the regular UPS systems to keep them in operation, because the systems need the batteries to be refreshed in order to be able to count on them. Elmwood has a replacement of batteries in place, and William Foster has a replacement UPS and batteries. These are all have arrived at the tech office, and we are going to be, or at least most of them have arrived at the tech office. We're going to be deploying them to keep that service going. Cybersecurity is something I mentioned loosely before. We have some cybersecurity initiatives and online safety initiatives that have been implemented as a district that are just good practice. We have two-factor authentication in place in two major places. One is on our network connectivity. If you are a staff member here and you connect to our servers when you are off-site, you have to do something called Cisco Duo authentication. It's not just your username and password. You will also get buzzed on your phone or some other device with a code. Same thing when you're accessing our network switches internally. This is to prevent people from the outside who have ill intentions from accessing our equipment if they do not have access to that Cisco Duo software. Staff accounts, we have two-factor turned on for Google accounts, things like that, for example. And I put down where available, any of our staff accounts where there's any form of data where we have the option to turn on two-factor, we have, as a district, have put that in place. We will continue to monitor that as it goes on to more of our platforms, and we'll be helping our staff with rolling that out as the opportunities become available. Filtering. Because of the fact that we receive our funding through E-rate for our connectivity, we are required to have filtering in place. We currently use two different platforms for that. We use something called Cisco Umbrella for our computers, and our Windows computers and our Mac computers. And we use something called GoGuardian for our Chromebooks to protect our students from going to sites that we do not want them to. We also have a district firewall in place that controls network traffic and behaviors coming to and from the district. That's a pretty critical piece, and something I'm going to talk a little bit more about later. These are some initiatives that are in place this year right now that we are currently working through. We've just been implementing something called Agile Blue, and if you want to see a fun competition between tech people, come over and see us as we are implementing Agile Blue. What Agile Blue does is it gives us alerts and warnings to vulnerabilities and priorities for network hardware and staff computers. We have I believe all of our network switches are now on Agile Blue. We also have our servers on Agile Blue. And we have some of our tech staff computers on there. We are going to eventually be rolling this out to all of our staff computers. What it lets you know is there are high priority critical updates, critical vulnerabilities on very specific machines or groups of machines, so you know to prioritize updating those so we are at less of a risk as a district. That software is monitored by an outside party. We actually receive emails letting us know, hey, alert, this is a problem that we're noticing. You also get a score for the machines, and that's where we get competitive. We're all trying to have our machines have the highest scores. We learned a lot in that process, though, about how the impact of certain software towards a score for a machine. It's going to help us learn a lot for how to maintain and protect our staff computers as well. It's really a sort of responsibility piece to make sure that we're protecting our district assets again. Today you'll hear a lot about ransomware and things like that in the news. Our goal is to try to do everything we can to put things in place to prevent us from being a story. One of the other pieces that we're putting in place, we just entered into a partnership with a program called KnowBefore. This provides phishing training for staff. This is something I'm gonna let staff know before we do these. What you do is just have phishing tests. They'll receive emails that are simulated a phishing attack. And the goal for that one is for them to catch it first. If they don't, it will actually walk them through what they should have seen if they click to a certain point. It simulates things like when somebody pretends to be a staff member and tries to get you to share information. It simulates things like links that you would click on where you perhaps cause something to download or go to a site that you shouldn't. Or actually something where there's file attachments that people could click on or download as well, and warns them of what their behavior should be next time. The goal of this is not a gotcha moment for our staff, it's just to help educate our staff, not just when they're here. This is really something that you need to be aware of in everyday life. If you've been checking your email lately, we all experience phishing these days. It is the #1 way school districts are attacked. So the reason why we're entering into that partnership is because we need to educate our staff. That's where your vulnerability lies in that. It's just not preparing your staff for how to handle that. We're also developing some partner relationships. Two of them are two government entities. One is MS ISAC, which is the Center for Internet Security. It's a major government arm that guides you through just shoring up your networks and security, making sure that we are into relationships with people that can help us with how to do our jobs better. I'm not going to pretend I'm a cybersecurity expert. That's one of the reasons why you enter into these relationships, to get that guidance from people who are, so we are implementing best practices here to serve you. The Ohio Cyber Range and Ohio Cyber Reserve is another relationship that we're looking to get involved with. What they will provide for us is a district evaluation. They will provide a free evaluation of what our current network situation is and give us guidance on how to implement a proper incident response plan. So if we were to receive any form of attack, we're able to respond to it quickly and in a manner that will get us back up and running. It's something that you have to put in place. It's not something we ever want to have to deal with, but it's always good to know that we know how to respond to an incident if we were ever faced with one. Last relationship we actually are involved with right now is the Student Data Privacy Consortium. This is a fairly new group. It's a K-12 nonprofit. What they do is they help you with guidance on, as you enter into new contracts, how to have the company basically make sure that they are protecting your student data in a way that assures your families that they aren't using it with other sources. You hear all the time about people selling data and things like that. Our responsibility is, as we start entering into relationships where we're sharing student data, that we are protecting our students and our families and our staff. And Student Data Privacy Consortium, their whole purpose is, it's all K-12, and it's all for the purpose of making sure that your contracts meet the requirements. It's other school districts sharing best practices to make sure that we are entering into the right data relationships with any company we work with. Other project we're working on right now is some equipment deployment, as I mentioned earlier. We have some remaining staff desktops that need to be refreshed. We have the desktops available for that. We are currently handling that piece. We are currently in the process of replacing the kindergarten iPads. This is actually a really good piece for our wireless connectivity, because some of the iPads that we have in place now, have some problems connecting to our wireless network, so this will bring them up to our current standards. And we are engaged in a Chromebook replacement at grades 2, 3, and 8 right now, just to keep refreshing those out. In the case of when we do replacement of things like Chromebooks, we don't end of life those. What we do is we take the Chromebooks that are still in good condition, we turn them into loaner devices, we repair them along the way. The ones that aren't, we part out, and we use the parts. The reason why we don't resell them, it's actually more cost effective for us to use the screens and keyboards and such that are in those Chromebooks. It's a better value for us to have those on site to be able to use for our own repairs. One more project that's really important that we're working on right now, 2 sound system related projects at the high school. In the CPA, we've purchased equipment, body mics, headset mics, replacement mic sets for productions and events, just to improve the sound quality of those events. There's also some HDMI encoders being replaced for equipment connecting to our sound system, just to improve the stability when you go to one of our events, that they run seamlessly and they're not playing around with a lot of that in the background because of the fact that that equipment's just not functioning right. In the high school gym and the auxiliary gym, we had a company come out and they reworked some of our wiring in there so that temporarily we have decent sound going through our buildings. What's happening right now is 2 of our amps have gone. They've had to take some of our sound equipment offline, some of our speakers offline, in order to not blow out the rest of the other amp that's remaining there. We're replacing 2 of the amps to restore sound throughout both the auxiliary and the main gymnasium there. This project will include the troubleshooting of the wiring and making sure there's a proper load for to the speakers on those amps as well. So it's a big project that's going on there. It's something that we're currently doing as well. This one is an important one. Our website redesign is currently going on right now. We work with our company, eSchoolView. That's a sample of what our new website's going to look like. There's going to be a lot of functional changes to our website as well, though. Especially when you use it on a mobile platform, our site will now be geared to scale to tablets and phones in a way that's much more seamless to what you're used to now. Now there's some of our menus that get hidden when you do that, and it's sometimes frustrating to find things on our site. As part of that process too, I'm going to be working with some of our departments to give them access to be able to update and manage some of their pages so we can clean up, and also work with our school buildings for that process. Just to get a much more cleaner, easy to find website. This design is, it's going to be a functional improvement, which is really a key piece off of that, so that's coming. It's going to be in February or March. They're telling me March, I keep pushing them for February. I would like it sooner rather than later. One of the last major things that we're going to be working on, and a couple other projects to talk to you about, but is our 5-year plan. We have a technology 5-year plan. You have to look at that every year, not for the purpose of really adjusting the money that we're spending in it, but revising it to current pricing, revising it to the district direction. Our direction's changing constantly, instructional direction. And because of that, sometimes your devices that you were choosing have to shift slightly in order to make that happen. Chromebooks are a great example of that. Chromebooks right now are the big thing. Are they going to be the big thing in 5 years? I don't know. You put a budget piece in place so that way if you're going to make a shift, you can make a logical shift, a budgeted shift that stays in our lanes that we currently have to whatever is best instructionally for our students. We are going to be taking a look this year for the 2024 staff and student device refresh, making sure we're following the 5-year plan on that. Also making sure we're staying up to date with our infrastructure maintenance and replacement so that way we can count on our hardware here to stay up and running. We're also going to take a really close look at our display technology and where we should be heading next with display technology in our classroom. So we're making targeted and budgeted decisions as far as refreshing our display tech. One piece that we've got to look for in that 5-year plan, our next major network upgrade, I mentioned the fact that we've done so much network replacement in our district right now. Our E-rate cycle begins again in 2026. So part of our 5-year planning is going to be making sure we have a balanced rollout of what the next phase looks like for our network replacement. 2026 is when we can really start looking at that. That's when that kicks over again and we have another cycle of years that we can gradually roll out our network refresh. So we will be working on that piece as well. My last one for you, it's some additional projects that we currently have in development right now. We've engaged CDWG and Esports Ohio for the purpose of taking a look at potentially implementing an esports program here. The advantage of that for our kids is there's a lot of our kids that really aren't traditional athletes, but need that kind of social outlet and need that kind of guidance. And I also think modeling of just online behavior and online identity. Esports is a great way to provide that opportunity for kids. So we're engaging these companies for the purpose of getting some guidance as far as what is a strong way to introduce an esports program and a strong budgeted way to introduce it, so that way we can put a cool space together, potentially to have our kids engage in that. We're looking at potentially a student tech club or a student tech class. We're still developing this place where students would be able to be involved in things like Chromebook repair and potentially maybe even laptop repair. We've engaged with CDWG and Lenovo for this. We've also stopped by some partner districts that have already have these programs in place to gain guidance on how they implemented the program, so we can see what's the right fit for our district to make it something of our own. We're hoping to get our students much more involved, though, in being able to develop an interest in future potential technology careers for themselves as well. We have a network closet at William Foster that needs some TLC. We have multiple closets at that building, but one location in that building has some end-of-life switches. They do need to be replaced before we get to that 2026 cycle. So we're gaining pricing for that right now to see what that closet looks like, but that's our single lone closet that has that problem. What we do is when we pull out some of that network equipment, our main campus is not eligible for E-rate. We don't get federal funding for that. So we have switches that are still of use that come out of refreshes like this. We need to do, though, a repurposing of some of those switches to the main campus here for the board office. So we're gonna have to take care of things like the closets at all of these buildings here, and particularly tech office as well. So our firewall, I mentioned that before. We're looking at pricing for a redundancy to our firewall. Reason being is if our firewall goes down, we have no network connectivity. We can't run our internet because we have to have filtered internet. We're required by federal law to have that. We're looking to see if there is a cost benefit to have a redundant firewall in place, meaning if it's a piece of hardware equipment. If one of them, if it goes down, there would be another one that would roll over to. We're looking to see the cost of that to see if that's something that would be effective for us. So that's currently in place. Last one is a preschool project. We have 2 preschool classrooms that need to be outfitted so that way they're balanced with the other preschool classrooms that we have. We have ordered for those classrooms interactive display boards and iPads so that will match the other classrooms in their department. So that's a project that's currently in play. That equipment's on order and en route. So those will be coming very, very soon. I hit you with a lot. Certainly not everything we do, but a pretty broad scope of what we do. Do you have any questions for me?
First question is, you mentioned that there were 2,992 tickets. What's the average amount of time that a ticket stays open?
Well, it depends on the ticket. We try to, within 24 to 48 hours, start addressing all tickets. Depending on projects that creep up, like today was a great example. We had a platform today that was not available to our staff. We spent most of the day working on getting that testing platform back up and running. In that particular case, it takes us out of the running to be able to help with tickets at that point in time. So but our goal is 24 to 48 hours to start addressing tickets. Guys, do you have anything to weigh in on that piece beyond what you just said?
And
Please
also
feel
it
free.
depends on how badly we're hit that day with tickets. If you look at the beginning of August, we can get like 100 plus tickets a day, and getting to all those with 5 people within 24 hours.
I'm only asking because I know that when our devices go down, it's like the whole world has to stop to get them fixed. So I was just curious.
Yeah, but we do try for 24 hours. That's always been our goal. So
One of the things we do well as a team, and it's one of the reasons why we ask for tech tickets, though, there's 5 of us looking at those tickets, so you end up prioritizing. In the case of, if we see somebody's down that's in a key position or can't do something instructionally in their classroom, we tend to prioritize things like that versus projects where we're like, okay, this one can wait. You never want to keep anybody waiting, but if it's somebody that's impeded from doing something that is a basic job function, we try to hit those first as well.
One more question.
Sure.
You mentioned the temporary fix to the high school amps. You said that the
Yes.
amps were.
We had a company that came out, and what they did as part of their first visit, they were analyzing what is currently going on with the system. In that process, they took some of the speakers off of the remaining amp that's in place for the purpose of balancing the load and improving the sound quality. When we went in there that morning, the sound was horrid. By the time we left, it's not as rich and full room as the sound that you would normally want with the amount of speakers we have there, but it's workable for now. Certainly not where we want to keep it. The purpose of getting the other amps is to restore full service to both of those gyms. So that's a great question.
Any other questions for Mr. Whalen and his team?
Madam President, I have a question. First of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation, and one thing that really stood out for this presentation regarding technology, just all the hard work that you do to keep us functioning, and especially where education is going now, where we're very dependent on you guys. Like, you guys are truly the foundation. Work does not get done in the district if the technology is not up and running in so many facets. I mean, from the phones to the lights to the doors opening to everything. So today you really showed us how many things to just even our safety and security, how you guys play a huge role in that. So I just would like to thank you guys for your hard work and just the many facets that you touch each day. But today you really kind of touched in on just some really key classroom pieces and academic pieces as it relates to technology, and you spoke of a 5-year plan, and just asking you and Dr. Reynolds, as we're trying to move our students forward academically and be competitive in rigor, and especially as we're talking about having more project-based and introducing our students to more technology and STEM opportunities, are we where we need to be, or are we aligning his 5-year technology plan with your academic plan to really make our school district more competitive as it relates to giving our students better access to technology and what's available to them?
Yeah, we have constant and continuous conversations just about staying ahead. One of the things that I definitely wanted to make sure we compliment Mr. Whalen is his ability to look forward, and also to kind of lead the way for a lot of the school districts in this area. What he won't tell you is that he's spearheading a lot of things for us regionally, school districts regionally, and heading a lot of the committees as well. But it's just to make sure that and I always talk to our departments, and I'd like for my department heads to be the experts in our area, so that other school districts can see us as a resource. And we've been doing that with his work, but making sure that we're coming up with a plan, because a lot of things that we've inherited is there's not really been a spending plan when you're talking about with things that we do in operations and some of the things that we do in technology, so that we're not caught in a situation where we have to spend funds that we really don't have. So we had to be on the spending plan. So that's where this 5-year plan, and also looking at what we're doing from our pre-K level with the things, the projects that he's working on currently, just to make sure that we're staying ahead of instructional technology pieces. And even talked about even holding an instructional technology conference as well, just to make sure that we are on the forefront of the things that are happening with education or technology within education. So yes, we are definitely trying our best to look ahead and not just kind of be reactive. We're trying to stay proactive to ensure that we are consistent with where education is taking us in regards to technology. So yes, we do have.
Because I know, like you said, Chromebooks today, right? Something tomorrow. I just seen a case where on the front page of one of our magazines where we got the kids putting the goggles on with the AI and actually taking them on field trips and actually teaching them through actually feeling, touching,
Virtual reality.
being, yes, yeah.
Yes.
So, we're probably going to be looking to be competitive and giving our kids those opportunities in elementary and this level of education. We're probably going to be looking at that technology in schools probably in the next 5 to 10 years.
You're speaking music to his ears. He's containing himself as soon as we start talking about virtual reality, because we have those sort of conversations. When we're talking about either virtual reality pieces, what we're talking about with esports, because esports is a huge thing that's coming up, and our students are missing out because we didn't jump on that. So we are considering that, because even on the secondary level, there are colleges that provide opportunities for students. University of Akron, the illustrious Johnson C. Smith University, I have to throw them in there. Johnson C. Smith. But they have programs that they placed a lot of funding and even scholarships for students in esports. And those are the things that we are trying to make sure that we're staying ahead of. The things that are happening, even with ransomware, just making sure that we're not trying to catch up. We want to stay on the front end of that.
Also, to the point of some of your question there, when it comes to the technology part, we can't work in a silo. We have partnerships with, people are sitting here, people that are they're my colleagues. If there's a curricular initiative going on, we have to support the curricular initiative and work together and get to know what that curricular initiative is. So technology doesn't make those decisions on its own. Technology works together with curriculum and with the teaching and learning department and making sure that those pieces go into place. Work very closely with HR, with data, with, I work with Jonah's department, with Gordon. We have good relationships here, and you can't work in a silo. We've got to be here to support. And actually, you saw with the amount of platforms that we support, a lot of times our role is getting it up and running, so that way they can do what they need to do day to day, and then we jump back in when there's a problem. Today was an example of a couple of big problems that I had. We had to jump back into certain platforms and resolve. And that's a lot of times our role. Is sometimes we weave in and out of our relationships with departments and their platforms and the work that they're doing to make sure that they're back up and running again. And there's other things that are totally our responsibility. I can't do what I do without the team that I have backing me. I've got a great team that backs what I do, but also the knowledge bank as far as our 5-year plan. When I talked about the 5-year plan, it's a 5-year financial plan. Based on where we're at right now, it's the reason why it has to be modified every year, because we're trying to keep a budget in place. In that budget, what you want to account for is making sure that you've got spending in place for your day-to-day operations, but also some funding in place that you can use to start taking a look at some of those next level things. And you may think now that like 3 years down the road you want to purchase this device, but now all of a sudden there's a new technology that's come out that actually is better suited to serving an initiative that we want to put in place that's a better opportunity for our students. You have to be prepared to shift that budget to that newer technology and trying to keep up with that. For me, it's trying to stay very well versed in what new technology is coming out, not jumping to buy every piece of technology that's coming out, but trying to see which ones are going to have the most instructional benefit. Because there's some things that are meant to be an entertainment medium, there's other things that are meant to be a diverse medium where students can create content, students can learn from it, and which ones are the ones that really belong in instructional institutions and lead career paths for our kids. From the earliest years straight on through to high school years, depending on what the technology is. So it's a constant process, and you can't do it alone. You've got to do it in partnership. I've got to be very well aware of what's going on with each of our departments and what their goals are and how we can best support them.
Any other questions? I do have a couple questions. How many analog cameras do we still have?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Do you guys know off the top of your head?
Still quite a bit at the high school.
Quite a bit at the high school, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully we, through this work that you're working, that you've talked about, we'll be able to get that down to 0. And we have the new and updated cameras for the high school.
And you can tell the difference between this.
Oh, yeah.
It's clear when you're looking at a screen full of camera views.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell which ones are the analog. So yeah, that's definitely something that we're making an adjustment on.
That's part of the reason why it's really important for us to update the infrastructure behind the scenes,
Right.
because the cameras themselves, if they don't have somewhere for you to connect to, and a way for you to house the better images that you're looking for, they're pretty useless. So, we're looking to put that in place so that we can do exactly what we're looking for.
Okay, and my last question is, you talked about the UPS and that if there was a power outage, the UPS will keep things up and going for a certain amount of time. What's that amount of time that it would keep us up and going?
So the honest answer to that is they're rated for a certain amount of time based on the load that's on there. How
Gotcha.
many things are plugged in. So it's usually, and guys.
We strived for 4 to 8 hours per closet,
Mhm.
but for the main head of our network and for the high school closets, they are, and theoretically even William Foster, Maple Leaf, and Elmwood, they have generator backups. So we're hoping that the UPS keeps it on long enough for that generator to kick on, and then that generator will kick in, recharge the batteries, and our equipment will not see an outage at all.
Okay,
But that generator kicking on, that's the caveat.
okay.
So
In my time here, one of the things that I've been really proud of, and says a lot about our team and the network infrastructure that they have in place, is the fact that we've had outages, but they haven't been ours. We have outside partners, our connectivity comes from the outside. We had one on Friday. We were out for a half day, and that wasn't our outage. And the reason I'm even noting that is it's more of a testament to exactly what Tim's talking about there, and the fact that our equipment stays up and running. We always look to our equipment to see if there's an outage, if it's us, because if so, we have a lot more control of that. Actually, it's strange, this is gonna seem like a strange thing to say, but it's easier if it is us, because we have the ability to do something about it. When it's an outside partner, we're pretty much at the mercy of their response to it, whereas when it's us, we can quickly deploy somebody and do something about it. And we're troubleshooters, we wanna fix the situation when we can, so. That answers your question.
It did. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much to
Thank
you
you for
and
your
your
time.
team.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for all that you do. All right, next on our agenda is our superintendent's report.
Thank you,
Dr.
Madam
Reynolds?
President. Thank you. On behalf of everyone in Garfield Heights City Schools, Happy New Year to our community. As we look for the forthcoming spring semester, students and staff will continue to be challenged to prepare for the testing season ahead. The help of our parents is critical to ensure that long-term success of our students, and your commitment to keeping our children in the classroom is highly important. And studies prove that more time in the classroom and less time away from school will improve academic performance. So it's precisely why Garfield Heights City Schools is aligned with the Cleveland Browns and their Stay in the Game initiative. So we thank the Cleveland Browns for being such faithful partners and supporters of our efforts. The start of the new calendar year means that testing season is right around the corner. And the classroom staff members will be doing their part to prepare our students for the yearly evaluations. Now, on the home front, a number of helpful reminders will supplement the school's steps to prepare. And we have listed them here. First, keep proper rest and sleep patterns in mind. A sound diet and healthy meal during the testing season also helps students remain focused. As noted above, being in school during tests prevents catching up and missed work. So from a social and emotional standpoint, while we as adults should be mindful of these reminders, but putting overt stress on tests on our children is always useful as well. Encouraging the best performance for our students puts them in the right mindset. A lot of things that I've said to my own students is try your best, my own children, try your best, and if we are doing that, that will be extremely helpful. So please keep in mind as we approach the all-important testing season. An exciting event will be taking place in the coming month at Elmwood Elementary. school, which is being called Are You Smarter Than a Third Grader? An initiative to further involve parents in the academic work of our students. Now, while we are certainly learn more about this program, which will take place on a given night that will be announced in the near future, parents will learn how to interpret academic reports from the fall and the lessons taking place in classrooms to prepare for testing. Now, this type of creativity is certainly intended to spark and enhance levels of interest among our parents. So please stay tuned for more information. I'm actually very excited about that. I was kind of given some information on what it would look like, and I think this is something that our parents would be extremely interested in as well. So finally, the month of January each year is dedicated to honoring the loyal service of our board members during School Board Recognition Month. I would like to thank President Millette King, Vice President Heather Morrison, and members Tandika Cox, Michelle M. Daniels, and Ashley M. Thomas for serving as important liaisons between the community and our school district, the strategic leadership you provide, and the thoughtful policies that you've helped guide the daily operations of our school district. We extend our gratitude. So thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your compassion for helping guide the Garfield Heights City Schools. Thank you all very much. And that will conclude my report.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is remarks from the public. We don't have anyone that signed up, so we will go on to our next agenda item, which is reports and recommendations of the treasurer. Could I get a motion to move and waive the reading of 8.1?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Sure.
Would you like to
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about
Yes.
the report?
You know I do. This time of the year, we're getting into our slow period. The tax budget, which you just approved earlier this month, kind of plays into what our budgeting process looks like moving forward into July. We are identifying some errors that we need to fix on our end when it comes to state reporting. That's kind of throwing off our revenue from the state. So you can see on the board report, we had a little bit of a swing, and that was for the update from December when the state kicked in some of their payment variables, especially with the economic disadvantaged piece. So that variable changes. It's actually changed significantly from last year to this year. Last year, I think the variable was around 4.1 per pupil was a multiplier. Now it's about 2.8. And the state uses a new matching system to match kids that are programmed with Medicaid, the Fair School, the National Lunch Program, CEP, all of that, which we're a full CEP district. The question now is, when are we going to get when's the state going to recognize the matching for some of our kiddos that weren't pulling in originally? When that happens, our payments are going to be back retroed, and we'll be made whole. That's the only big difference that you would see if you were looking at November's financial and December's financial. So otherwise, we're humming along as planned, and we're looking again looking like a pretty solid ending surplus for the fiscal year.
Any questions for Phil? All right, so that was moved by Ms. Thomas and seconded by Ms. Cox. Can I get roll call?
Yes. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Next is superintendent's recommendations, certified staff. Can I get a motion to move and waive? Actually, move and waive 10.1 through 14. through 13.1.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? With no discussion, that was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Daniels. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. We don't have any policy items, correct?
Correct.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'm sorry, could we go back to discussion for that last motion?
Can we go back even though we voted? Here,
I think so.
for discussion?
Yeah.
Or I
Go
can
ahead.
just ask later, it's okay, I can ask later.
All right, we are on 15.1. Can I get a motion to move and waive the reading of 15.1 through 15.8? Well, actually, we'll go to 16.1. So that would be 15.1 through 16.1.
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam President,
Ms. Cox?
I do have a question. I noticed on, 15.2, it was noted that both programs satisfied ODE requirements for credit flex. I'm just curious, do the other ones, have some type of process to follow any ODE requirements?
Not all of them. Some of them we have, brought on board, and Dr. Reynolds probably knows the programs a little better than I do, but some of them are brought on board just for some social emotional support, and some are brought on board to help meet some of the new ODE requirements around financial literacy.
I'm referring to 15.1 and 15.3.
So 15
Okay, these are programs that we've worked with in the past. We created some requirements for all the companies that we're working with that are responding to social emotional programming, basically for our students. And they completed all the pieces that we require for the programming. And those in particular are two programs that are focused on our young ladies. They do two separate things. What we try to do is to keep it as diverse as possible so that one program that might respond to a certain group of young ladies may not respond to another group. So we try to mix it up a little bit just so that we are responding to the needs of our students. But Queen I Am and I Am Bella have been two groups that have been worked well for us.
So do they, I guess my other question is, do they keep or provide us with the amount of students that they work with and any type of success rate?
Yes. So one of the requirements, our Pupil Services Department created an RFP program, basically requirements. In order to work with us, these are the things that we are going to need, and data is one of those. Last year, the board has asked for this information. I am heavy on data, and I'd like to make sure that if we're working with organizations that there's proof that these things that they're doing is actually working. So this is a requirement, yes, for any of the companies that we're working with, that data has to be provided to show their effectiveness. So that we're not just kind of spinning our wheels and working with organizations that are not really showing an impact on our students.
And I just want to follow up with Ms. Cox, because I was going to ask, what did the data show us this year? Did it show that we were, obviously, they're making an impact because we brought them back, but what did it actually show us? Was there a decrease in the number of referrals? Did we see these young ladies getting more involved with school activities? What type of data what did the data actually show us?
Dr. Preet, sure, I'd like to. This is from the Pupil Service Department. This is Dr. Preet.
Mrs. King, the data showed that a number of our girls who, for example, had difficulty in making friends, had difficulty resolving conflict, they became more adept at problem solving, getting along better, listening. We had young ladies who sometimes did not have an interest in school, therefore their grades were suffering. So these groups that we have, as you can see here tonight, the focus from all of them is to make them more academically aware and to make them a positive influence in the schools.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other discussion or questions?
I do have a question just about these groups that we're bringing on board overall. Are we only offering these groups just for our at-risk students, or are we also just offering these groups just to students who may have an interest in acquiring some of these social emotional skills that just strengthening the skills? So they may not be at risk, may not be a student that's having challenges in school, but they may be shy, or they may have trouble building friendships. They may not have direction yet. They may have self-esteem issues, but they're not showing any typical risk factors at school. But they just may need the supports that these types of groups could provide them. Be more proactive before some of these things come up and can possibly become a risk. Are there opportunities for those type of students to participate in those groups, some more positive peer models?
Yeah. It's all of the above.
Okay.
You know, so how we use this, it's referred to as MTSS, where there's a tiered approach.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, we have a social emotional coordinator, social emotional learning coordinator, and she provided a kind of a screener so that we can identify those kids who need a little bit more. It may not be behavior. It may be they need to be a part of something. Maybe they're a little shy. Maybe they're working on confidence, and they become a part of the tiered approach. They would probably run into tier 2. Those are students who are a little more targeted. Those are the students that we'll end up putting there, but we don't exclude those kids who just want to be a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
Because that says a lot as well. In my research, those kids who are more connected to school do better in school. So we're not going to just limit it to our kids who have problems. They're the only ones that can be a part of these programs. No, we do target our students who need a little bit more, but we also open up for kids who just want to be a part of something.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Thomas?
I know a lot of the contracts had ranges, so like, we can serve 20 to 159 students. May the board be provided with an update of how many students each program is taking in and what the cost of that is? Because although I saw a lot of ranges in how many students they can serve, I didn't see a range in price.
Gotcha.
So if there is one price for 160 students, can we make sure we got 160 students in here? Yeah, so if the board could receive an update on how many students and what the final contracted amount for each group is, I would appreciate that.
Sure, we have that information readily available. We'll go ahead and get that taken care of.
Any other questions? All right, that was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Morrison. I actually have, nope, I'm good. Moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Ms. Morrison. Can I get roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. That's on our agenda is remarks from the public, and we don't have any remarks. Our next regular board meeting, is on February 20th at William Foster at 6 o'clock. We also will have a special board meeting work session at 6 o'clock on February 12th. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at what's it giving the time? 7:16. Is there a motion to adjourn at 7:16?
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All right, that was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Cox. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yeah.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.